start by thanking you all for joining us today for this webinar. And we are really grateful for having all of you here. And as all of you might be knowing that today's webinar is about unlocking the power of cloud business with AWS. And today's session will be taken by Arindam Chakraborty. He's a cloud solution architect with Prutech. He has an extensive experience with cloud technologies, and he will be taking us through some of the main things that can help you in your in understanding AWS and cloud technologies in general in a much better way. So today he will be talking about how to drive business innovation through AWS cloud services, the key benefits of AWS for businesses. He will also discuss some of the best practices for a smooth transition, and then he will tell us how to optimize our business with AWS solutions. And in the end, we will talk about the cloud technologies for innovation and digital transformation. So, Arindam, over to you. Please take the floor and do let us know if you need any help in between. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shivani, for setting up the ground and for a wonderful introduction. Yeah. So before I start, I'd like to thank everyone that you have given me the opportunity to do this for my audience. So let's have an interactive session today. Okay. And I think I would start with a quick introduction that what I have been doing in this cloud space. I think Shivani has already told, but let me give you some idea that what I have been doing so that you have some sense of validation and the reference point that where I'm coming from. So my name is Arindam Chakraborty, as you know. So I am in this business over 10 plus years, working with some large enterprise customers, help them to move into cloud and have their smooth migration journeys. So in these 10 plus years, I have already worked with some of the largest enterprise customers like Thomson Reuters, New York Stock Exchange in my previous project. So I have delivered fault tolerance, robust architecture for the New York Stock Exchange backend activities that they do on the back end of their brokerage activity. And also Thomson Reuters had this large, one of the largest, like third largest SAP workloads in the legacy systems. So I have created architecture and delivered delivered the products that we have on the AWS to Thomson Reuters, and so that they could easily do the transition to cloud. And that I have done successfully in the year of 2022. And for that also I got the recognition from the AWS itself, because Thomson Reuters itself a premier tier partner of AWS. Okay, so let me share my screen and maybe I'll be taking you through the service offerings that we have in cloud, and how from a business point of view, whether it's a small scale business or medium scale business or the large enterprise business, what are the key offerings that we have across cloud coming from different hyperscalers, and what are the areas that you can look for and how you can leverage all these offerings in your workloads, right? Yeah, so let me share my screen. Hi guys, let's deep dive into it. That what are the service offerings we have in AWS Cloud and how it can pump up your digital transformation journey, right? So this session is not about only the people who are already on cloud and we are trying to pitch in with some service offerings, but if you are starting your business or you have a small scale commercial activities and you want to look for the opportunities that you have or the service offerings that you have coming from different hyperscalers like AWS, Azure, Google, Alibaba Cloud, But this session would be focused on AWS, because like we have a lot of solutions and offerings in AWS, and we have the large customer base in AWS, and we have the alternative service offerings available in other hyperscalers as well. So so for the best interest of time, I have concise all these materials so that we can focus on this AWS. And if you have some requirement around the other corners of the cloud platform, then I'd be able to help you as well. So yeah, so starting our cloud journey, we need to first understand then what are the operating models we have, right, in cloud computing. Before that, I would like to believe that everyone is aware that what cloud computing is. But for someone, if they are very much unaware of what the cloud computing is, what is there's so much of hype around cloud hosting and all, that all businesses are moving to cloud. So let me give you a quick one-liner or two-liner so that a layman can understand as well. So it is basically a rent out service that you are taking for your infrastructure components like uh, compute, storage, database, networking, and you are going pay as you go model. Whenever you need, you procure the thing, and then you can just dispose the things, right? And you have a lot of advantage while opting for these models. You have a lot of agility, flexibility, cost optimization scope you have. So what do I mean by scalability, agility, and cost optimization? So suppose you are moving to cloud, you are trying to explore the offerings that unique providers have, right? So agility means that you don't need to go through a hardware procurement thing. You don't need to procure your own hardware and give your commitment. So instead of that, you can rent out the services from AWS or Azure that you have. Suppose you have the compute requirement, so you are taking the EC2 instances, or you have the serverless requirement, or you have the storage requirement. Whatever requirement you have, and you have offerings coming from AWS and Azure on that field. So without worrying about the infrastructure management, without worrying about your operational overhead, without worrying about your cost overhead, you are focusing all your time on your innovations or your new solutions, right? So that your business can grow, you can grow at a scale, and whatever you're trying for your business, and whatever the ideas that you have for your business, you need to see that what are the areas we need to work for, we need to work on, we need to work further, right? And what are the technologies we have, what are the cutting edge technologies that are daily evolving, and how we can leverage that in our workloads. Suppose you are having a very small commercial business, like maybe e-commerce business, then what are the solutions you have in AWS, and how you want to grow? Okay, what are the unique solution you want to design for your workloads? So you can focus on all these things rather than having your energy wasted on infrastructure management and all. And scalability, like you don't need to guess your capacity. Whenever you are starting your cloud journey, you can start small. You can start anywhere with 1 core, 1 GB compute requirement, even elastic storage. You don't need to procure like 5 TB storage or something. So as you go along, then you are growing your capacity. So that gives you a lot of scalability, that you don't need to commit or overcommit for your hardware components or your network components or for your storage and database components, right? And for cost optimization, see, now cloud has this big issues across all the providers, right? Like we have this myths in the market that cloud is being expensive. So cloud is being expensive because they are not really choosing the right partners. Because if you're choosing the right partners, then they would try to help you with all these compute models or the savings opportunities that we have, right? And then they will enable you to go through all your cost components and consolidate all those cost components, and let you have an insight that what are the areas that maybe you need to have your focus, what are the areas that you can save your cost. You have lots of tools available in AWS. By that you can have your own findings, and you can have a you can take your action based on those findings, and you can further reduce your cost. And you know that AWS has a global presence, that you don't need to be tied up with a single region or something, that it is like whenever you're trying to go global, so within a minute you can go global, right? With you're just a click away. Like whenever you are trying to provision some workloads, maybe you are based out of Hyderabad or Mumbai or maybe Bangalore, and you have an application where you have a global application where people would be accessing it. So you have all the service offerings that you have. So you don't need to be restricted. You don't need to restrict yourself to a typical region. You can pretty much have the offerings across all the globe, right? So these are the three models that we have in cloud computing. These are the not only three models, we have some other models as well. But these three will be focusing because we have lots of requirements coming for this model only. So infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So what is infrastructure as a service? Infrastructure as a service is just you are having your infrastructure requirements on cloud. Suppose you have compute requirements or storage requirements or database requirements or hardware requirements. So then AWS is responsible to manage those resources, and they are supposed to manage the underlying hardware of it, right? So you procure the instance, you procure the storage, and you are good to go. But on the top of it, you need to install your application, or maybe the dependencies, or maybe the patch management. So AWS is not responsible for that. Any cloud provider is not responsible for that when you're renting out the infrastructure services and you're uh, uh, deploying your applications and upgrading the systems, right? Then there we have a platform as a service. Suppose you want to host a mainframe framework workload or PHP or Ruby or .NET workload. So then you have those platforms available as well, so that you don't need to worry about the installation of this PHP, .NET and PHP framework workloads. But the platforms will be available along with the infrastructure. You don't need to take care of the infrastructure. You don't need to take care. You don't need to manage the platform. All you need to manage is your code. So once you have your codes ready, you can simply go there and deploy. So those are the platform as a service offering we have in AWS. And then we have software as a service. In software as a service, like we are using Teams, Gmail, G Suite, So these are the software as a service where you're you don't need to have your infrastructure procurement. You don't have to worry about your system upgrade or patch management or any version upgrade, dependency installation. Whether you don't need manage your own code as well, right? So that times we have the softwares coming from different vendors in different flavors. So if you have the requirement around the corner, you can uh, opt in for the services, the software as a service. And this is the overview that why AWS is leading market shareholder in cloud. So AWS has started their journey, I think, in 2002, but they have come up with AWS S3 in 2006, I guess. So that was the first offerings that AWS has come up with in 2006. So after that, in that year only, they have introduced EC2 instances. So AWS has always been the key player, is the first core advantage they have, right? So that's why they have this market share of almost 31%. It has during last 2-3 years, it has decreased by 10% because it used to have almost 41%, 42% market share. And AWS and the top rival being Azure. So they have taken a lot of market share from AWS because Microsoft has a lot of SaaS offerings, as you know, right? It's M365, Copilot, everything. So when people are using these licenses and all, so if they have a requirement to extend their workloads into cloud and all, so that time they choose this Azure services. But AWS has its unique offerings as well, covering all the verticals, covering all the solution areas, right? And we have some other players as well. So cumulatively, the other players are contributing to the 20%, 25% of market share altogether. Yeah, so this talks about the global reach that we have in AWS. So AWS has this typical concept of regions and availability zones, right? Edge locations, direct connect locations. So what are these locations? So availability zones are nothing but cluster of data centers. Like you have multiple data centers, they have deployed multiple data centers. They have also rented out some of the data centers from different OEMs. And there they have a logical separation of AZ1 and AZ2. And then the cluster of AZ availability zones are being the region. Like you have the latest region in Hyderabad. Previously, it was in 2016, I guess, they have introduced the region of Mumbai. So it's been last 2 years, they have introduced Hyderabad region as well. Apart from these regions and availability zones, they have 600 plus edge locations, 13 regional edge locations, and they are covering 245 countries with that, and 135 direct connect locations as well. So why these figures are important, as in when we are progressing on the slides, we'll be seeing that what are the service offerings we have and how these regions and availability zones and direct connect locations are very crucial to have a global reach, you know. Okay, so let's talk about the advantages we have in AWS. Okay, so in AWS, basically you are moving from capital expenditure to your operational expenditure, like I mentioned before, right? That you don't need to procure any hardware. Whenever you have the requirement, you're just coming to AWS and you're just launching that server or creating the database or creating the storage or attaching the storage to your existing compute. So a lot of focus you are diverting from your capital expenditure to operational expenditure. So you need to give a commitment that you will be spending this much, right? So it gives you a lot of flexibility, you know. And cloud providers like AWS, they offer very lower cost compute and other services as well, because they are the large aggregators, right, across the globe. And also, when you are starting your business and when you are starting your workloads, suppose you are not you have a business, you have a solution, but you don't know how to go about it on cloud, right? So that times all you need is a consultation that we'd be able to give you, and then after that you need to figure out that what is the capacity that you would be provisioning on cloud, right? So most of people, they try to guess the capacity and they provision those workloads, but in AWS you don't need to do that, because uh, as I said, you can start as small as one core 1 GB virtual machines, right? So as in when you are growing, so you can rapidly scale that up with the minimum downtime. Even for some of the services, you don't need to have a downtime as well. And it gives you a lot of boosting speed and agility. Like you need to just provision your IT resources. You need to think about your infrastructure management. AWS will take care of that, you know. And if you are having an existing data centers, or you are tied up with some third-party data centers like Control-S or maybe Iota Elastic Cloud, so maybe you're spending a lot of money on that because you have given the commitment, you have procured those hardware components. But in AWS, you pay as you go model, right? And you don't have a commitment. Yes, but if you have a like if you have a vision that okay, I would be having these requirements for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, then obviously you can commit, and that would further reduce the cost of your infrastructure components, right? Then you can pretty much go global within a minute, even within a second, if you have all your provisions in place, and you can put a automated structure around it with CI/CD pipelines or any microservices that you are using. So it is just a click of a button that you can, within a minute, you can go global. You know, so like it is very so we are very delighted that we have worked for this many brands, and this list is not exhausted here because we have collated some of the big names here, and we have provided a solution. And in order to provide the solution, we need to be associated with the right technology partners, right? So here we have our technology partners. So we have a fair sort of association with all the technology partners we have around the globe. And when customer is having some requirement, right? So if you're associated with all these technology partners, you'd be able to push those products to the customer. So that becomes a very win-win situation for both the customers and your partnership with those technology partners. And in cloud space, like other technology partners, we have a very good partnership with AWS. We are the advanced tier partners with AWS. We are continuously growing, and this year we have written the advanced tier partnership, and we are aggressively trying to reach the premier partnership, which is the highest level of partnership you can have in AWS. And then we have similar kind of a partnership in Microsoft CSP partner with the CSP partner of Microsoft as well. And then the similar kind of partnership we have for Oracle Cloud and GCP as well. Now, why this partnership would be important, right? Like you can work in a single platform, right? But when you are exposed in the market, you know, when you're having that having the requirement coming from large enterprise customers or GCC customers, global capability centers customers, right? Then they don't they are not tied up with a single cloud provider. So they have some chunk of workloads in AWS, some chunk of workloads in Azure, some chunk of workloads in Google. So most of the time, infrastructure, the network components, compute, storage, database, they would be hosting in AWS, and they would leverage the data analytics and AI ML tools, the unique offerings that we have from Google Cloud Platform, and they will use the CI/CD and DevOps services, EKS services, Kubernetes services from Azure. So that's how they are not tightly coupled up with a single partner. They can leverage the unique offerings coming from different hyperscalers, right? So that's why it's very important that we have the skill set so that we can approach this cloud agnostic solution. Cloud agnostic solution is nothing but operating in multi-cloud environment. So that if the customer is having the requirement, you can go there and you can provide your solution. You are just not pushing AWS. Whatever they have the requirement, you can push some offerings from AWS, some offerings from Azure, some offerings from Google as well. And to do that, we have a solid delivery team here. They are like each one of them are AWS certified. Okay. And this certification also, they have a variety of certificates like SysOps administrator, solution architect, associate solution architect professional, myself, security specialist, DevOps engineer, you know. And also we are the well architect review partner with AWS. So if you have your workloads, if you're already on cloud and you are not able to do your war activity, then you can come to us and we can look at your workloads and do a well architect review workload thing uh, like for you. And also we are the public sector partner. So now AWS is gonna merge this public sector and private sector as a global partner. So till now we have this batch of public sector partner, but I think in next quarter AWS is going to merge this public and private sector partner as a global partner. So if you have that batch, you can pretty much operate in any sector and you can go global. Okay, so that was the overview of AWS service offerings, but let us go little deep into it, that what are the unique verticals that we have, what are the solution verticals that we have, right? So I mentioned that for infrastructure as a service, you have major components like compute, storage, database, networking, right? Your data protection services, security, preventive control mechanism. So we'll be going through all these things one by one. So this is AWS compute. So in compute, we have bouquet of services like EC2. Within EC2, we have different flavors of EC2, Elastic Beanstalk. Then we have Amazon EC2 auto scaling for scaling up your resources. Then you have Lightsail services and AWS Batch. So let us go through all these services quickly so that you can have some reference point that what are these services are doing and what are the solution we can get by using these services. Before that, you can have a look. Maybe I'm not going to read it aloud. So you can have this statistics that what we have in AWS. Okay, like 80% of the conference application that we have on cloud, not on AWS, but on cloud. So 80% of the conference application that we have on cloud, it is already on AWS. So that tells that what is the global reach we have in AWS. So large customers, even the other day I was reading out an article that the Fortune 500 companies, global Fortune 500 companies, the top 500 companies, 80% of them are already on AWS. Okay, so the others are either planning to move on AWS or they are tied up with some little hyperscaler players. So in EC2, that is the main compute offerings that we have. So it is nothing but a server that you have, like in on-premise you have server. You have some capacity, you have some storage over there. So EC2 is nothing but an instance, it's a virtual machine. So if you have your workload, if you have the requirement and you need a server, then you can pretty much go live on AWS and you can create your own server and you can create your own script to launch the servers rapidly so that you don't need to go through the manual process of deploying the servers. So now, why EC2 is so important? Because AWS comes up with lots of varieties of instance types, right? They have, I think, 25 plus family types, like compute optimized, memory optimized, then general purpose, then bare metal services. Okay, so based on the requirement that you have, maybe your application is maybe compute intensive. So that time you can go and opt in for compute optimize EC2 instances where compute vCPUs are more than the GBs, like the ratios are more actually. Like typically you have 1:4 ratio, but in compute optimize you'll have 2 core 4 GB, 4 core 8 GB like this. But in memory optimize, the RAMs are more in ratio of vCPU. So if you have 2 GB of vCPU, then you'll have 8 GB of RAM. So that's how you can choose various products, various instance types, so that suits your workloads. You know, and then you have also GPU based instances in AWS. If you have heavy workloads and heavy graphical, and you need a heavy graphical processing unit, then you can like use the GPU based EC2 instances as well. And these instances you can opt in as a pay-as-you-go model, like on-demand model. And then if you are ready to give a commitment for 1 year or 3 years, then it can reduce further cost like 40% to 60%. And if you think that you want to be tied up with a single family, that your workload is such that you don't have a lot of variation, then you can select a single family type, and there you have almost 70 to 80% savings opportunity. And then we have a elastic beanstalk as well in compute area. So this is like as a platform as a service. So suppose in EC2 you're responsible for your patch management, your application installation, right, and dependency installations. So now you do not need that, right? You do not need that. You do not need that overhead that I would be managing those applications and dependencies and the packages as well, and those frameworks, maybe PHP frameworks and all. So, uh, so we have platform as a service offerings like in Elastic Beanstalk. So, like if you have PHP framework or uh, Go framework or Ruby framework or .NET framework, so you can literally spin up the service and you can deploy your code and you can go global in a minute, right? You can go live in a minute. So these are the service offerings we have, and also you have auto scaling. Like you can anytime scale up and scale down the compute resources you have. So you don't need to have a prior commitment, or you don't need to do a capacity management as well. So it gives you very much scalability and flexibility as well. And the other compute offerings that we have in terms of containers. Now you know that every medium and large businesses, they are uh, moving to containerization. Okay, so they don't want to be tightly coupled with a server and they want to run their workloads. But instead they want to put all these workloads in a container and then run, and it gives them a lot of flexibility. So we have these offerings in AWS as well. You have ECS, okay, for container services, that would be AWS managed. Now, if you need to have full control and you have more complexity, like you have controlling units or Helm charts, so then you can use Kubernetes services as well. Then Fargate, we have that for the serverless compute solution for the containers, and we have AWS Lambda. So that is the serverless offerings that we have for the compute power. So now let me give you an example that how this serverless architecture works, right? So now suppose you have a EC2. So now for EC2 you are getting some billing, right? So but your workload is something that maybe you can write a code in such a way that it would connect to a database or to your archival storage, and it would chuck off some data and maybe some uh, zip files or some old data and all, right? So that times you don't need a compute power that would be running 730 hours a month, right? 24 hours a day. So that times you can create your code in such a way that you can trigger that Lambda and it would connect to that uh, database and it would do the job for you. So you don't need to have a EC2 procurement for that. So that's how the serverless architecture works. So it has become very popular for the media streaming industry as well, because they don't need to, they have a large requirement of storage, but they don't have a large requirement of compute that would be that they need to procure, and that would be running 24 into 7. So every now and there, if they are having those media streams and also they pass it through this Lambda functions only. And you can pretty much integrate these Lambda functions with almost every services that you have available on AWS. Then as you have talked about compute, so we need to talk about storage as well. So like if you have your AWS EC2 instances, or if you have your serverless architecture, so you need the storage as well, right? You are storing the data. Now, storing the data can be of various types. Like if you are storing your archival data, your huge amount of data, maybe you don't need that much of retrieval. The retrieval frequency is very less. Then you can uh, store it in S3. So it's object-based storage, and this is one of the like this is the first service that AWS come up with. So it has proven its capability for a longer for all these years, right? And in S3 also you have a lot of tier server storage tier available. So if you want to have your data in cold storage, if you want to have your data in warm storage, based on that you can do the transitions and all, and you can have your bucket lifecycle policies as well, so that you can pretty much automate. Like you don't need to go to your S3 and then push those images or those files to cold storage. So you can have your policy and it will be automatically done by the AWS backend. Then we have the AWS Elastic Block Storage. So this is a typically storage that we attach to compute, like EC2 instances. Like in on-premise, you have your SAN storage, right? So in EC2, you can attach this storage, and then you can pretty much go about it. Like you can handle this, you can consider this storage as your local storage, and it will be tightly coupled to your EC2 instances. And also there are a lot of adjustments you can do. Like if you have Java applications running in your instance and that is continuously ingesting the data and pushing the data in your local drive. So that times you need a lot of throughput, you need a lot of IOPS, right? So that also you can do. Like EBS also comes with a lot of variations, like standard EBS and IO1, IO2, general purpose 2, general purpose 3, language variations that AWS always come up with. So AWS always come up with a lot of new version of their storage, of their compute power, so you can stay updated, obviously. Then we have Amazon Elastic File System. So this is a network file system. Suppose you have multiple servers and you want to have a composite repository, which will be considered as a shared model. Okay. So now you need that all your 10 servers, whoever is doing the operations in these 10 servers, they would be dumping some pieces of code or some pieces of data or some pieces of configuration files just for your future reference in a single repository. So you can connect this Amazon file system, Elastic file system, to your multiple EC2 instances, and you can use it as a shared storage. Then you have AWS storage gateway. So this is not a storage service, but it is a storage connector service. Like if you have a on-premise setup and then you have a on-prem AWS setup as well. So between this, you can have your AWS storage gateway service to create a bridge between these two uh, opposite networks, right? Then let's talk about networking and content delivery as well. In networking, first of all, we have VPC. So it is not like that if you are coming to AWS, you are exposed to everyone, right? So you have your own isolation in uh, uh, in the way we have VPC. So that is a virtual private cloud. So you can have your own isolation. You can create your own isolation network by giving some CIDR based on the workloads that you have, that you would be needing this much of IPs, you need this much of resources. So based on that, you can define your CIDR and then you can create your network. And within the network, you can also create your public subnet and private subnet based on the need. If you have internet facing resources and you want to host that in public subnet, you can do that. But if you want to have a secure private connection, they can use it you can have your private setup as a private subnet. And also, like within the private subnet also, you can use a lot of like with this subnet concept, you can uh, spread your data across all availability zones, right? Suppose you are provisioning your data in North Virginia. So within North Virginia region, you have 3 to 4 uh, AZs, so that you want to design your architecture in certain way that it can withstand a single point of failure, right? So if you are spreading across your data in multiple AZs, then if one AZ is going down, then you have the data backed up in other AZs as well. So it is very much important to walk in this high availability model. If you are having that kind of a data which is where you cannot have downtime. So it should be up all the time. So that times it is advisable to have your data in the other availability zone as well. So you can create a replica of your resources and then put it in the other AC. Then you have elastic load balancing, Amazon Cloud front distribution. So basically it's the content delivery network cloud distribution. And ELB is just like a load balancing before you connect your resources, compute resources. So if you're having large amount of request coming to your EC2 instances, then you can put a ALB so that it would equally distribute those traffic to your multiple resources. And then content delivery network, AWS has introduced this content delivery network to cut down the latency that we have. So suppose you are having a website or you are streaming your media content sitting here in India, but you have a global outreach, like the customers from the global or the users from the global, they are using. So how to handle the latency? Because you will be provisioning something within your region, right? So that time CDN comes into play. Like it has a wide edge location spread across 245 countries, and it caches the content of your website in those edge locations so that if someone is accessing it from the other part of the globe, so they can view the content without like with a controlled latency, with a minimum latency. Then these are the key benefits of AWS for businesses. We'll be going through all these things in details in the later part of the slides. So these are the scalability and flexibility, cost optimization, security and compliance, and I will be giving you some case studies as well, that what Netflix has done, what Amazon Prime has done to have a robust architecture around the corner, right? And also this is the best practices that we do for the AWS migrations. So this I have done a lot of migrations with the large customers, like I mentioned, Thomson Reuters. So they have almost 7 environments in place, like sandbox, then dev, then test environment, then UAT environment. They have 3 UAT environments: UAT1, then SIT, then pre-prod, then production. So you need to have a lot of phased approach to do all this migration, and you have a lot of tools and services available in AWS that can take care of all this phased approach and the other migration, like DMS, database migration service, application migration services. So when you are handling the migration, you have to be very sure that whatever you are migrating, you are following a phased approach. Like you are not doing your sandbox migration, then your UAT migrations, right? You are doing a sandbox migration, then doing the integration testing, then you are doing the mock testing, then you are doing the mock live, then you are moving to the another environment. So that's how you can do a phased migration, and that will help you to have a smooth transition from your on-prem workload to host all the services on your cloud. Now, like compute storage, we have discussed. Now we have the security services in cloud as well. Okay, so this is a very paramount to host your services on the cloud. Like if you have the provisions in cloud, so now you want to think about that, how you're gonna secure these workloads, right? Because like I mentioned, that we have a lot of myths uh, around the corner, that cloud is not secured. We have multi-tenancy problem there. We do not have granular control. We don't have dedicated support from cloud. So These are the things which are not true. When you are operating in these sectors, that time you understand that you have plenty of services coming from these hyperscalers, and they invest a lot of tons of money on this, on their R&D department. Like in security department, AWS Azure, they put their almost 45% of total top line revenue. So they put all this revenue to this security services, so that the customer can have a sense of safeguarding that our resources are safe on the cloud. So you have AWS Identity and Access Management. Okay, so this is not only a security service. This is like a centralized system that you have, centralized like access control you have. Like if you are creating a AWS account, so you need to, of course, uh, do some put some restrictions on your user, right? And then you're creating the users and then creating the policies, and you're applying those policies and applying those restrictions as well. So through IAM we can do that. We have another slide describing how IAM works as well. Then you have the security services, and you have the best practices as well. Like best practices, as in we have different benchmarks, right? Like CISA benchmarks, HIPPA benchmarks. Then for credit cards and debit cards, we have PSI DSS benchmarks. So are we following all these things in cloud? Yes, because all the services that we have, that goes through all these benchmark policies only, and cloud services are designed in such a way that you have to go through these benchmark policies and then provision your workload, so that you are having a robust and fault tolerant architecture in place, right? Yeah, so I was talking about this identity, right? Identity access management. So this identity and access management, it gives you the control to have your user in place, put a restriction around them. Maybe if you're running an organization where you have developers, you have testers, but they are accessing to different resources, right? So you can create those role-based policies and then put a restriction that developer would be able to access this many resources in AWS. You know, maybe tester would be able to push the data in only this S3 bucket. They would be able to list the data there. They don't able they would not be able to delete the data. So a lot of granularity you can handle with identity and access management. Now in AWS, we have this concept of AWS organization as well. Okay, so where you have, suppose you have a large model of operations where you are not having a single account. You are having 2 or 3 accounts or 4 accounts. Maybe one account is for the lower environment, sandbox and testing. Maybe the other account is for your pre-prod environment. And the third account you have your prod environment. But you want to have a consolidated billing, consolidated access management. So then if you are clubbing all these accounts in AWS organization, then you can control all these accounts from a single IAM console only. You don't need to go to different account IAM console and provision the checks, right? You can create a centralized user, you can create a centralized policy, you can create a centralized group, and you can put those restrictions over there, so that would be applicable on all the mapped accounts that you have under AWS organizations. Now we have the security pillars. As I was talking about that, AWS spends a lot of R&D revenue on enhancing their security. So now they have this well architect framework as well. It goes through 6 pillars. So we have this 5 mentioned here, and one is sustainability. So they have all the services as well. Like if you're going through all these pillars and you are trying to have an overview of your infrastructure, that what you have provisioned on cloud, then you have the services that would be covering all these pillars as well. So for reliability, you are doing the right sizing exercise, so that whatever the workload that you have, and you are choosing the right amount of storage, right amount of maybe the compute power. Okay, so that it gives you the reliability for over like period of time. you know then you have security services, how you're securing your data, how you're encrypting your data at rest, or how are you encrypting your data in transit, how are you putting the restriction in place around your security. Okay, so these are the security services that we have and we'll be talking about. We have the detailed presentation as well. Then you can do a lot of cost optimization, and we have the tools around all hyperscalers, and they'll give you the insight that what are the areas that you are overspending, or maybe what are the areas you might have a look to decommission the services because those are not being utilized. And maybe you can put your budget, you can restrict your budget that I don't want to spend beyond this limit on our compute power. I don't want to spend beyond this limit on our database power, database expenditure, right? So you can put a lot of restrictions around that as well. We have different services, and you can integrate the different services and have a centralized console to see all these things. Then operational excellence talks about that how you are solving the operational challenges that you have on day-to-day basis. Like in AWS, you have system manager, you have other tools as well, whether you can automate those operation challenges that you have, right? So it can not only smoothens out the operations that you have, but within the system only, within the corporate system that you can have a lot of agility and a lot of restriction you can put within your team only. So you don't need to depend on your manual workforce to do all this, or maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes job. So that you can, like patch management. So that you can take that can be taken care by this all these systems that we have in place on AWS. You know, and this multi-tenancy is a thing that I have been hearing a lot from the customers, but now this notion has gone away. Like people are thinking that, okay, I am moving to cloud, then what about the security that I have? Like everyone is moving to cloud, they have the data. AWS has this insight on the data that I'm provisioning over there. No, it is not. It is not like that. So, like I told you, that you will be having your own logical separation as VPC, right? So you can control your network. You can control your outbound. You can control your inbound as well. So just because you are hosting the data on AWS doesn't have insight on your data. Maybe they'll be able to see that what are the services that you're using, what scale of the services that you're using, how you're scaling it up, what are the compute powers, how much billing you have, but they won't be able to go deep and look into your data because you're securing your data. You have your own keys, you have your own account credentials, right? So multi-tenancy is not a issue in AWS. For the matter of fact, it's not an issue in Azure or GCP because they have their audit in place. They also go through a lot of audits and all by the global entities. So we are safe from that point of view, you know. So these are the pillars we talked about. Maybe you'd be able to collate all these things once we end this presentation, because we have the other security offerings that would be used to go through all these pillars. Then this is the shared responsibility models. So let's understand that why we call it a shared responsibility model. So now you can say that, okay, I am hosting these services on AWS, and what is my responsibility in it? See, when you are hosting some services or your computer storage or networking, so that means AWS is responsible for your backend network, backend hypervisors, okay, backend storage there that they are having. So they are responsible for the virtualization, for the infrastructure component. But after having the compute power, what you are uh, installing on that EC2 instance, what type of data you are loading in your database, okay, what kind of a application you are developing, what kind of a website you are developing on the top of the EC2 instances. That is not AWS responsibility, right? So their customer has to take some responsibilities. That's why we call it shared responsibility, where AWS would be responsible for the virtualization, for the infrastructure components, for their backend hypervisors, for their backend network so that it doesn't go down. And customer will be responsible for the patch management, for the system upgrade, for their code management, right? So it goes hand in hand. Okay. So if you see the statistics for last 10 years, I think we have experienced maximum of five outage in last decade, right? And that is also region specific. Okay. So it shows that AWS has a large aggregator who are working for them. They have the OEMs in place, so they have a large presence in terms of regions and availability zones, and they have those compute powers, hypervisors set up over there. So it's a very stable and very steady infrastructure components that we get from AWS. Then you have authentication services as well in terms of AD, Active Directory. So if you have small workloads or you have a small setup within the organization, then you can go with simple AD, but you have a custom AD, you need custom AD, you need to create your own custom policies, you need to maybe integrate your infrastructure components that you have already procured, and you want to integrate that with your AD service. At that time you need to go with Microsoft AD maybe. And then like PMG Jewelers. Uh, in Hyderabad, we have a customer PMG Jewelers. PMG Jewelers, they have this hybrid kind of a setup. Like they have one AD in their physical existence and then one AD in AWS. So AD connector would be helpful there to set up that connection, to establish that connection from your hybrid setup to your AWS setup as well. Then you have AWS organization that I told you that you can club multiple accounts. If you have the requirement that you have multiple accounts and you want to control those accounts from a single point, from a single account, then you have AWS organizations where you can list out those AWS accounts and you can create your custom policies, create your resource policies as well, that what sort of resource would be user would be able to deploy in XYZ account, right? So it gives you a lot of granularity, lot of access management, and you can put a structure around it. And also the billings and all, it is also consolidated. Like you will get a single billing and you can see the account-wise billing as well in your consolidated billing. Now, since we have talked about compute, storage, security, so what about the protection mechanism that we have in infrastructure? Okay, not only for infrastructure, for the storage, for the like so the other components, like not only the compute components, the storage components, the database components, any DLP you have, any EDR solution you have, endpoint detection response. So we can have a look that what are the protection mechanism we have and what are the services that we have that will be covering these areas. So we have system manager. System manager is not typically a protection service. It is a very versatile service. So you can use system manager to have a protection mechanism in place. So you can do a post-launch configuration as well with system manager. You can do your patch management as well, and you can also create your own document and create your own custom code. And you can push those codes through system manager to your systems parallelly. You don't need to log into the system individually, and you can structurize your code to prevent those unusual access, pattern breaking access, then maybe your root credential access, right? So you can this system manager in many ways to take care of all these workloads. Then we have AWS Shield and WAF and Firewall Manager. So now when you have a network, when you have a robust network you have deployed on AWS, so as we know that layer network works in layers, right? So what are the defense mechanism you are putting across, right? So in the third, fourth layers, we have this AWS Shield, so which will help you to eliminate the DDoS attacks, right? Then on the seventh layer, that is the application layer, we have the web application firewall. So you can place that web application firewall in front of your application load balancer so that you can limit a lot of requests coming from a specific region, maybe specific IP, or maybe you can block a specific region or specific geolocation. You can eliminate the DDoS attack as well. Now attackers use bot, that bot we have. So they have developed some bots which will be used to flood the request, okay, and it will create the bottleneck in your network. So what WAF rules do is, so it detects the crawlers and it detects the bot ingestion in your system, and it mitigates those bots as well. So it gives you a control to those bot attacks that eventually do the DDoS attack. You know. And you have custom rules as well. Like WIF is a service where you can put your own custom rules. Also, there are a lot of players that have uploaded their solution in marketplace, and that is being integrated with web application firewall. So you can have a look that you have almost maybe 150 plus custom rules you can generate, and your pricing would vary based on the custom rules. The default rules that you have, it cost $1, so it is as cheap as $1. But if you are going for the custom rules, so based on the complexity, your rates can go high. So this is the network security. Okay, so how you're securing the network? Like I told you that if you are hosting your infrastructure on cloud and you're creating your network, so that doesn't mean that everyone would be able to see your services, right? So that's why we have this virtual private cloud concept, so that you can isolate your network. So all you need to do is come up with a requirement that how many IP addresses you would need for your workloads, and eventually you can scale that IP addresses as well by provisioning another CIDR range. So with that CIDR, you could create your own VPC, and then you can maybe distribute that IPs into public and private subnet. And like I told you that if you want to have a multi-AZ setup, then you can create maybe, suppose you have two AZs, then you can create two public subnets for one is two public subnets for AZ1, AZ2, and two private subnets for AZ1 and AZ2. Then private subnets would be used for your private connection, and maybe public subnet would be used for your public connection. Because suppose if you have web application where the traffic from the internet would be able to access that website and see the content, so that time you can put your web application in public subnet. But having said that, you have a lot of other services as well that you can host your web application, the internet facing web application in private subnet as well. And you can use the other services to create the connection, the internet connection that would come to your web application, you know. And then suppose you have uh, on-premise network. So you are someone that who's been there in the business, and you have already the workloads running in on-premise or in a legacy system, but you have some workloads in AWS as well. Okay, so that time how you're connecting this to separate network? You don't need to depend on this internet, because the backend connection we can create, that is called site-to-site VPN connection. And in the broader scale, we have a direct connection as well. So what it does is it creates its own IPsec, and it creates a private tunnel between your on-premise and AWS network. And while connecting from your on-premise to AWS and vice versa, you have the private connection in place, you know. And in the broader scale, you can do it with direct connect. Whether suppose you have a remote, you have a factory in a remote area where your bandwidth connection is not that strong. Maybe it is 30 Mbps or 40 Mbps. If it is below 60, 70 Mbps, that would work. You'd be able to access your AWS components. But if it is below 50 Mbps or 30 Mbps, maybe you're dependent on broadband, you don't have any LASL connection. So that time you can approach to AWS to have a direct connection. What they would do is they would come with their own ISP, and then have a secured connection that will be having a larger bandwidth, you know. Then you'll have the direct connection. But this is recommended for a larger workloads, for a larger setup. Otherwise, you'll be wasting a lot of money on this. For a small setup, you have the site-to-site VPN connection that pretty much does the thing for you. Then in the security services, we have Amazon Inspector. So it actually works at the network level, the network configuration we have. So at the network configuration, we have understood that how network works. We have the VPC, uh, then the other services like subnet, you know, security groups, NACLs. So inspector actually scans everything. It analyzes every network components that we have, that security groups, VPC, network, SCLs, network access control race, that is a subnet level firewall, then route tables and virtual private gateway, internet gateway, peering connection. So it analyzes all these network connections, network components, and then it give you the findings that maybe which port is vulnerable or what are the action you need to take, you know. So it gives you a lot of insight about that. So like I was mentioning that multi-tier architecture, right? That a website hosting, you know. So sometimes you have the requirement that you have your three-layer architecture. You have your website application, web application, you have your uh, application, and then you have your database layer. So like in web application, you want the internet traffic to come, right, to hit your web application. So like I mentioned that you can create in public subnet and you can create in private subnet as well with the other components that we have like internet gateway, NAT instances and all. So now you want to secure your database. So how are you going to do that? Maybe you're gonna uh, allow the traffic from the internet, maybe the HTTP traffic and HTTPS traffic with the help of a load balancer, and you can put a ACM over there, like SSL certificate over there, and then you can create that data in that secured layer of data in transit, and then it would hit your web application. So when it is hitting your web applications, and then it is getting routed to your application layer as well. So then application layer is fetching the data from the database. So now you don't have any intervention in your application layer from the internet. You don't have any intervention on your database layer from the internet. The users are only connecting to the web application. Then your code is written in such a way that your web application is going to application layer, and then the application layer is fetching the data. So by this architecture, your database is pretty much secure. You don't have any user logging to the database, only the admin user you have. So you don't have any users, XYZ users coming to your database and accessing your data. So then we have the VPC endpoints as well. Like in AWS, we have a concept of private services and public services. Suppose you have the compute, your compute components in private subnet. Mm. But now you want to use the services which are public, like S3, you know. So now how you're going to do that? Maybe you need to be dependent on internet, but in AWS, we have a endpoint concept. So if you create that endpoint, so your connection to this public services within the AWS as well, it will go through a private connection. So by this, you can have a secure private connection in place while accessing to the public public services that we have in AWS. So this is the data security services that we have. We have multiple data security services in Amazon. But I want to talk about Amazon Messi because this has been very widely popular because it's ML machine learning capabilities, you know. So a lot of customers like were having large large data sets, you know. So they have their data warehousing system as well, but they need to spend a lot of money on to classify the data, to do the data loss protection, you know. So Amazon Messi comes into the picture because it is a machine learning powered data security tool, so which will help you to protect your data loss and uh, classify your data as well. So we can look at the classification that this services does. So it classifies the data in these models, like your personal identified information, PII data we have, then personal data, then your source code. If you're having any federated authentication keys, like you have SSO keys, right, like private keys, then your DB access patterns, you know, then your open authorization keys. So it will classify all the data. So what it does is it would give you a consolidated dashboard where you can see that our my this haul of data belongs to which sector, and what are the data are being retrieved frequently, what are the data being maybe viewed, is being retrieved by the viewers, and who's ingesting the data, and who's doing some changes on your PII data. So it will give you a lot of insight. So after having that insight, you can create a lot of prevent preventive mechanism around your data security layer, right? So Messi helps you to do that. It gives you a lot of insight, multiple insights, so that you can create your actionable items based on those insights, and you can have a very secured environment around your data structure. Then these are the two services that we have. to encrypt the data in transit and data in rest, So AWS key management services. So previously AWS was having their own managed keys, encryption keys. But since last 6 years, they have come up with customer managed keys as well. Like you can create your own customer keys and you can encrypt your storage component, your compute components as well. Okay, so it will do the encrypt and decryption simultaneously. Now, if you have a physical uh, setup and you have your own keys, maybe you have purchased from your third-party vendor. We have Verizon, we have Bill.is Lab. So they are the providers. They sell the private keys. So you can integrate those private keys in AWS as well. So you don't need to depend. You don't need to be dependent on AWS keys, AWS managed keys, or your customer keys. You can bring your own keys and start using those keys in your application, in your infrastructure components. Then you have AWS Certificate Manager. So that is the ACM we call it. So that is a free service, SSL service that we have. AWS doesn't charge you a penny for that, but the condition is you need to place it in front of with you need to integrate it with application load balancer. Like when you're using that application load balancer, maybe the traffic is hitting the application load balancer, it is going to the resources that you have. And within the application load balancer, you can create your own rules, like to route that traffic through HTTP port or HTTPS port. So there you can have your own free SSL integrated with load balancer so that you can encrypt your data in transit as well. Data at rest is being encrypted by this KMS keys and data in transit is being encrypted by the AWS Certificate Manager. And also, if you have your custom keys or your OS user keys, maybe you can create your own custom code. You can create your own Lambda function to rotate those keys as well. Because maybe you are operating in a healthcare sector. Maybe you are operating in a banking sector where you cannot only keep those credentials for 30 days. You need to rotate those, right? So you don't need to manually do that. Through ACM, you can integrate Lambda function with ACM and then integrate that with your server and then rotate those keys as per your policies. Then we have detective and preventive control. So we have Amazon Guard Duty. So it is nothing but Amazon managed threat detection service, which like goes through a malicious and unauthorized behavior, to protect your AWS accounts. So it basically works with different data points. So we'll be seeing in the next slide only. It collects those data points and it has its own algorithm. Okay, it has its AI algorithm within itself, so that it identifies the data that which is breaking the pattern, or maybe uh, what is the differentiator that you have put in the storage. Okay, so if that is being deviated, so it will notice all these things and give you the findings. So here how it works. Okay, so what is the data source that Amazon Guard Duty works on? So it takes the data from the VPC flow logs. VPC flow logs will be covering in the next slides as well. That it monitors the data that is hitting your network connection, that you have the VPC connection, what is hitting your network, what is going out of your network. So it creates all these logs and all with the protocol, with the accept and reject status and all. It gives you a lot of insight about that. So guard duty typically takes the data from VPC flow logs, DNS, and CrowdTrail events, and it gives you findings based on these three severity: high, medium, and low. You know, and based on that, you can also integrate your say CM application or the third-party security integrations tools to have a preventive mechanism in place or preventive action in place. Now there are three types of threat detection types. One is reconnaissance, One is the other is instance compromise, and the third one is account compromise. So what the first one does? So first one is basically if someone is trying to get into your account and trying to see the access pattern that you have and gather the information that you have, that how many resources that you have, uh, what is the database size you have, what is the database flavor you have. So it gathers all the data. So guard duty instantly monitors that who's gathering the data, what is the activities being happening over there. And account compromise means when someone has got into your account and trying to reset the password, so that you won't be able to access the other resources. So it detects all this activity. Guard duty detects all this activity, and it reports to you based on this high severity, low severity, and medium severity. Then you have instance compromise. Now when the web attackers, they are attacking your account, they are very clever. Whatever, suppose you have EC2 instances, storage, and database. You don't have any other components. Maybe you have some network components, but you don't have any other integration service or microservices. So that time attackers would only use those services only, that what you are using, so that in the billing, when you're seeing, you don't see any other services in that billing. Whatever services you are using, you're seeing those commercials only in the billing. But what attacker would do, attacker would utilize the services that you're running to maybe generate some crypto mining, generate some cross-site scripting, generate some malicious files which would get some sensitive information or PII data from your database. So guard duty reports all these findings uh, to you to have a preventive action in place. Then you have security hub. Now we have mentioned that we have a lot of security services that you have mentioned, right? AWS inspector, then guard duty, then AWS config we have, AWS firewall and firewall manager. So security hub basically consolidates all these findings in a centralized location. Okay. So in that account, in a centralized location, you can see all the findings that you have, so that you can put a structure around it and you can have your preventive mechanism as well. So you don't need to rely on a single service and all. If you are enabling these services, and these services are very cheap, AWS doesn't charge you a ton for all this service enablement. So this is like the security value chain. Now we have understood that how you're gonna identify the uh, threat that you are getting, protect the threat you are getting, and how you're going to respond, how you're going to automate the respond, and what is the backup services we have, right? AWS gives you a lot of backup services as well. So, so the value chain works like this only. Like if you are using all these services all together, so you can have your identify mechanism, then have your protection mechanism, then have your detection mechanism. And based on the pattern matching, you can have your automated response, that what response you want the system to take on behalf of you. Maybe you are not in front of the system, because this would be working on the back end, right? It is not that you are sitting in front of the system every time. So that's why we have AWS has introduced all this bouquet of services. So the other thing is you can further investigate and then curate your investigation plan, and then reshape your response according to that, and then eventually you are recovering your items, the components that has been compromised. So this is we call a value chain, where you have bouquet of services, the services that we have just discussed. So these services are only being used to create this value chain, so that you can have end-to-end protection on your workloads. And I was talking about VPC flow log in the previous in some other slides, right? So it basically you can enable this VPC flow log as per your elastic network interface. So what is ENI? ENI is nothing but the IPv4 addresses that we have, that is attached to a EC2 instances, that is your server on cloud. So VPC flow log monitors all these ENIs. Okay, it monitors all the traffic, the ingress traffic, the outbound traffic, that from where it is getting generated, the populated, what is the packet size, what is the protocol, what is the IP, what is the status, that the connection was rejected or not. if suppose a connection is coming from the internet and it is hitting your private component, so that means you have some loopholes there. You have maybe allowed this incoming traffic from the internet. So that time you can uh, use all these insights to create a preventing mechanism, and also we have talked about the security services. So eventually it will give you a finding that your this port is compromised, is you have allowed this connection from the internet. So we have these services around the corner, and we have this trusted advisor. So trusted advisor is nothing but a advisory guidance. Okay. So it basically uh, it is very flexible. It not only scans through all the security components that we have or the port vulnerability and all, but it can give you some information about your compute utilization, your server utilization, your underutilization. That if you are over provisioning any server, if you are under provisioning any server, you know, so that you can uh, create an action tracker around it. See, AWS, what I was discussing, that people have a lot of myth uh, uh, about cloud, right? That we cannot do this, we cannot do this, it's not safe, we don't have any granular control. So that's why I was going through all these services so that you have some basic understanding that what are the services we have, because AWS is a large ocean. If I have to cover all the services, it will be a 7 days workshop maybe. For the best interest of time, I have collated all the popular services that we use for the large customers that we have and have been using for our global customers. So that is the thing with trusted advisor. Okay, so it basically checks your open ports, unrestricted access, your DB access pattern, your DNS records, your multi-factor authentication. If you have any vulnerability on ES3, like you have opened the public access, or maybe you don't have an encryption key, or maybe you have a credential stored in S3 and that is being public. So it gives you a real-time guidance on that. Then lastly, we have CloudWatch monitoring service. Okay, so this is a agent that runs on this compute components and for the database components as well, not only for compute components. So this is a like most versatile service that we have in AWS. So this is not only monitoring. You can do a lot of things with uh, CloudWatch. You can create your own custom metrics. The default metrics are already there to give you the insight about the CPU utilization, RAM utilization, disk utilization, network utilization. Okay, is there any bottleneck? What is the server health? But it gives you a lot of flexibility to put your own custom metrics as well. Like all you need to have your own custom code, and you need to go through the document of AWS that what are the custom metrics that you can create and what are the language the language model you can use to create those custom metrics, and you can pretty much update that config file in the server, and then you can restart the agent and you can view all these custom metrics that you have created in a single console that you have on AWS, right? So we have already covered everything. Okay, what we have, not everything, the most of the things, starting from our compute, storage, database, networking, the security services that you have, the data loss protection that you have, that DLP that you have, that EDR we have, So these are the service that we are using to provide a uh, required solution for our customer. So the service offerings that I have I think I have managed to briefly make you understand what are the service offerings that we have. So coming to this protect capabilities, these are the capabilities that we have. So use those services only that we have been talking about to curate the bucket of customized service that you are offering to the customers, like the migration and deployment. We have talked about how we can do the rapid deployment, how we can do the migration approach. You have in migration, you have 7 R's assessment, right? Refactoring, replatforming, lift and shift. So how you're gonna maintain that the phased approach of the migrations? What are the best practices you are maintaining in terms of compliance? Are you adhering to the compliance of CISF, CISS, PCI DSS, HIP, HIPPA? So we have talked about that, and how security parameters we have, the security services we have to safeguard our workloads within the cloud. What is the scalability option we have, that within a minute we can scale our resources, you know. And also, while scalability, we can create your custom rule, create your custom scaling policy, that if your server or your database is reaching some threshold, which what you are defining over a period of time, then it would spin up another replica instance or replica database. Okay, so a lot of control you can take by all the scalability offerings that we have within AWS. Then infrastructure provisioning, you can integrate a lot of things with your within your system with the infrastructure provisioning tools that we have. Like we have cloud formation as well, that works as a infrastructure as a code model, and you can also integrate your own source code repository, like maybe GitHub, Git Action, with this cloud formation template, and do the rapid deployments. You don't need to wait for a manual intervention to create your own services or components, right? Excuse me, my like throat is very dry, so that's why I'm having this water frequently. Then you have cloud environment optimization. As we have gone through those security parameters and the monitoring parameters as well, right? So by clubbing all these monitorings and alerting systems, so we can optimize a lot of components that we have in the cloud, right? So if you have uh, uh, compute requirement there, then in compute sorry. Then in compute, what is the sizing that you're using? Like I mentioned, that you need to stop guessing your capacity. You can start with the least configuration we have available, and then you can eventually scale up your configuration, right? So with this tools and the services that we have, so we can do a lot of cost optimization, and we can do a lot of analysis, and this will result in our cloud environment optimization and cost optimization only. Then we have well architect framework. So basically we go through the 6 pillars of review. You have the suppose you have the workloads, and AWS would recommend you to go through a review covering the 6 pillars, like reliability, security, I have talked about performance, efficiency, operational excellence, sustainability. So when you are going through all these pillars, so you can have a fair idea that what I have provisioned on cloud, how my architecture looks like, what are the options we have, what are the loopholes we have, what are the areas I need to work more. So AWS gives you a free assessment as well. So based on that assessment, you can take your own action. Okay. So this Value Architect free review framework has been introduced by AWS only. So AWS is the first player. So after that, Azure, GCP, they are also following this Value Architect review model. Like I said, these are the solution areas. So cloud consulting, cloud optimization, DevOps as a service, compliance and governance, and managed services. So we have talked about all these things. So maybe now we can understand that in a consulting model, how we are working. Uh, Whenever a customer is reaching out to us and they don't know how to move to cloud, so we can give our advice that maybe we can give a free assessment that let me have a look to your infrastructure, then maybe I'll be able to decide that what are the options I can give you, what are the solution I can give you, so that it can help you to create your robust application and robust infrastructure. Then for vulnerability review also, as I think I have given you a fair amount of brief that what we have in vulnerability review. But suppose you already have your workloads in cloud, but you're not a wired partner with AWS, as we are a wired partner. So you come to us and we conduct a review on your workloads. Maybe you need to give a little bit of download, that what is your workload, what are the provisions that you have, what are the microservices you are using, how you are safeguarding your network. So based on that, we can conduct a review and we can submit that review to AWS, and we can give you a lot of insight that what are the things you need to do. Maybe you need to work on your network safeguarding. Maybe you need to work on your data integrity, data security. So that process we can initiate, and we have that initiative in the place along with Protect Go Digital. And these are the bouquet of services that we have. It's the same thing I was talking about in the previous slides as well. That we have these services coming across compute, storage, database, networking, right? So now how you're going to use that, right? So because if when you are approaching a customer, we are not selling only compute power. We are not selling anything. We are just trying to understand that what is the workload you have, what your end goal is, what is the integration you want to achieve, what is the maybe the scale you want to achieve. Maybe in a year or two you are trying to upscale your business, so that time you'll need a lot of infrastructure and all. So that time we can give you a free assessment. Maybe you can work on this pattern. You can have your total cost of ownership reviewed as well. So we'll give you a total cost of ownership, and based on that you can calculate your ROI as well. Because going on cloud is not a fancy thing, because everyone is doing that, I'll be doing it. No, this is not that approach I would be taking. So what customer needs to do, they need to have a total cost of ownership, that uh, what my workloads are, what my business is, and what I'm trying to achieve. So what is the cost I can spend on this architecture, on this solution. Then we can jot down all these points, and then we can come and discuss that, okay, sir, these are the components you would be required. Maybe these are the microservices we want you to have in the system. Then what is the cost of that? So by looking at the cost, you have your investment, and then you have your return on investment as well. Okay. So because you need to look at your return on investment as well, because when you are moving to cloud, you are having an end goal, right? So that's why we are giving all the services, so that it would help you to understand that what are the operating models we have. Even for someone who's just starting their business, maybe they don't know that what is the shape and form of their business would be after 1 month or 2 months. They are just starting now. They don't have any infrastructure in place. They don't have anything on cloud. They don't have anything on on-prem. So that time we always try to tell them that cloud is a platform, that you have a ready-made platform, that you don't need to procure a large amount of data, large amount of database, large amount of EC2 instances, right? So you can start small, and we'll give you the platform, the ready-made platform, because you don't have the luxury to spend your time to think and maybe strategize on your creating your own platform, right? So that time we have these platforms ready. Okay. And eventually when you go further and go deep dive into it, then we can pretty much automate, starting from the infrastructure provisioning, starting from the network provisioning, then completing the whole circle of automation with CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous development, and automation pipelines. So these are the service offerings we have. I think I have managed to give you a good brief about it. Maybe I can give you some analogy that what is the market trend we have. So if you Google by cloud first this term, so you would see that there's a lot of push going on from every partner, not only from AWS partner, from Azure partner as well, GCP partner as well, that whenever someone is trying to do something or trying to open new business, partners are pushing them that you need to come to cloud. So that is a cloud first approach that we take. But let me give you an analogy, so maybe you'd be able to understand that why it is not the right approach. So suppose you have a stomach pain, right? You have a stomach ache. So now you are going to a doctor, you are consulting a doctor. So what did you expect? That doctor would give you some pill and maybe put you on medication, and you will follow that medication for 7 days or 8 days or 9 days, and then you'll see the result. But if you go and consult a doctor and they straight away tell you that you need to go through a surgery, would you be comfortable in doing that? No, right? Because you are not mentally ready, you're not physically ready, you're not financially ready. So that approach we cannot take in cloud also. So if you're coming to me saying that, Arindam, what is the solution that we have that I am trying to achieve this? I am not going to sell you cloud first. I'm gonna uh, analyze that what workloads you are having, what is your end goal, what is the nature of business that you are having, and how you can move to cloud, and what are the options that you have moving to cloud. Is your application or workloads is ready to move to cloud? Because not every application and database or any other workloads would be ready to move to cloud, right? Not for the sake of having an engagement and having an association, a business association, I would push cloud. No, I am ready to give the free assessment, whatever you have, what kind of workloads you have, or you have an end goal. Maybe you have a long-term goal, maybe you have a short-term goal that after 6 months I want to do this within my system. You come to me, you give me your vision, you tell me your vision, you give me your insight about the workloads that you are having or you are planning to host, then I'm ready to give you that free assessment. You know, maybe I have fairly covered everything that you want to know, and how you can leverage cloud in your digital transformation journey. Maybe I would like to hand over to Shivani or Archana to talk little bit about our company profile, that what are the areas we are operating and how many strength we have, what is the presence we have, so it can give you some reference like what Protect is having. Yes, over to you, Archana or Shivani.
Thank you, Arindam. It was a wonderful technical session, I would
Yeah,
rather
it's a very
say.
technical section.
Yeah, very technical session. So, team, here, okay, I would not take much of your time. Prutech has got presence in 3 countries with at 18 cities presence, and we have got a strength of 1,000 plus, as well as we have implemented about 850 plus projects globally. Okay, so I will not take much of your time. Arindam, if you have time, can we just have one or two questions from the
Yes, yes, I would
attendees?
like to, yeah, I would like to open the forum for question and answers if someone has any questions in mind.
There is Siddhant who would like to ask the question. Siddhant, please. We are unmuting you. Please. Okay.
Hello.
Yes, Siddhant, we are
Hi.
able to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Arindam. Thank you for this insightful discussion. I just wanted to ask a question. I might have missed it in between, but like there are emerging technologies in the field of like say AI and IoT. So like how is AWS preparing to like for such emerging technologies in the future as we go ahead? So
Okay,
how is that going to
okay.
happen?
So, have you heard about AWS Solution Library?
Yes.
So in solution library, if you go and see that what are the emerging technologies they are working on, so they have those categories as well, like what they are doing in AI, what they are doing in ML. So they have come up with these bedrock solutions, right? So they are now integrating with lot of IoT vendors. Okay, so like Protec also, they have a lot of presence in IoT sectors as well. So AWS has reached to us as well that what is the IoT devices that you are coming up with, what is the solution that you are giving with these IoT devices. Okay, so you're giving those insights so that they can develop their services, so it would be a one-stop platform for them as well. But as of now, we already have some services, that the bedrock services that you have, the other services you have, they have this IoT, like you have this IoT code modules, if you have heard about. So these code modules also, AWS give you those AWS IoT code modules also, so you can take those code modules and while creating your own IoT devices, you can apply those code modules over there as well. So they are doing a lot of work in that field as well.
Got it. Understood.
Yeah. Maybe if you want to ask a specific solution, maybe you can reach out to me. I'll give you my contact details as well, and you have our marketing team. They are always hyperactive, so they won't take much time to get back to you, and I can give you a curated solution about that. Not an issue.
Absolutely. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So, with everyone's permission, we would like to wrap up the session. And very soon we will send you the recording of the session. So if anyone have missed out,
Siddhant.
Siddharth is. So Siddharth's question is
Okay,
like he's
yeah,
not
yeah.
on
I'm not
AWS.
with
And
AWS,
what
but
about?
want to move. Yeah. So yeah, of course we can help you with that. Maybe I can give you a free assessment by looking at your workloads or whatever the current provisioning that you are having. So maybe I need to get in touch with you and then I can have a look and then suggest you the correct way forward, you know.
Okay, attendees, thanks a lot for taking out time, especially on the weekend of Friday and attending this wonderful technical session. We thank you and we wrap up the session. And very soon we will share the recording of the webinar with a free assessment report. If anyone is interested, can kindly fill up the free assessment form and we will do the free assessment and we can see how we can help you out in the business growth. Thank you. Thank you, Arindam. Thank you, team.